Dallas to take on the Stars. And then 3 games coming up on Sunday. The Hurricanes are going to play host to the Devils. Senators and Maple Leafs will match up in Toronto. And the Wild and Golden Knights, they are set to match up in Las Vegas. Tonight, the NBA play-in tournament is going to wrap up. Heat at the Hawks, Mavericks at the Grizzlies. The winner of those games will go into the NBA playoff seed. The loser of those games will have their season come to an end. Bundle auto and home, renters, or condo insurance and save with Progressive. I'm Matt Pauley with the SportsGrid Sports Flash.
Spring is here and Kohl's has everything you need to celebrate it in style. Find fresh looks the whole family will love for all your events and get-togethers this season. Plus, save an extra 15% on some of your favorites and earn Kohl's Cash. There's so much to love about spring, and big savings on great styles is one of them. Find them now at Kohl's and Kohl's.com. Select styles. Offer ends April 19th. Kohl's Cash and coupons do not apply to Sephora at Kohl's. Exclusions apply. See store or Kohl's.com for details.
At Straight Talk, we are all about no-brainers. Calling Grandma for her recipe, no-brainer. Streaming one more episode at 2 a.m., big no-brainer. Getting real unlimited data where you buy bananas, the ultimate no-brainer. Switch now and get a free Samsung Galaxy A16 5G or Moto G Power 5G 2024 with select plans. Straight Talk, real unlimited data. Available at Walmart and StraightTalk.com. Offer valid through 5/19/25. Taxes and fees apply. Requires in-store single line activation on qualifying plan. For network management practices, visit StraightTalk.com/terms. Copyright 2025 Verizon.
How many SportsGrid listeners does it take to change a light bulb?
It takes 2.
1 to change the light bulb, and 1 to see if our mobile app can provide the same amount of light. Get the winning edge. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Scott Wetzel and Ben Stevens.
On right here on a Football Friday. It is Football Full Circle. That is FFC all across the SportsGrid Radio Network and Sirius XM Channel 159. He is Scott Wetzel. I am Ben Stevens. We are here together to get you set for your football weekend. A weekend that will feature just a few days following until we get to the 2025 NFL Draft. Exactly 1 week from now, opening night round number 1 will be in the books. We'll be looking forward to day number 2. The players that were snubbed, the players that might have slid in that opening round, and all of the discussions that we will have getting you ready for the 2025 NFL Draft here on today's edition of Football Full Circle. But, Scott, not just the NFL Draft, but Aaron Rodgers yesterday speaking publicly for the first time in a while. We thought maybe we would hear more about his offseason plans. Really did not get a ton of info about Aaron Rodgers and his next stop in the National Football League, if there will even be one. A ton to get to today on Football Full Circle here on SportsGrid Radio.
Yeah, it wasn't exactly a delving in, really grill 'em type of interview, right? Which you're not going to get on the Pat McAfee show since those two guys are best buddies. It's kind of like I'll throw a softball question, and you answer how you want it, rather than just pinpointing him down. When are you going to make a decision? Who do you really want to play for? That type of thing. And as far as the draft, man, I don't know if you've ever been to Lambeau Field. It's in the city, but it's like a suburban. It's not like city like Wrigley Field in Chicago. It's kind of suburban. So I guess they're going to have it outside. But what if the weather is bad? And I'm curious to see how the NFL, man, they made this thing bigger and bigger and bigger every single year. You know, what's the next step? You know, how's it going to play out next Thursday? So it should be interesting.
Scott, they're building the stage, probably already built, but it's in parking lot 3 outside of Lambeau Field. So you'll have the stadium in your rear view, probably as that backdrop in setting for where the draft will be on Thursday in Green Bay. You do worry about the weather. Of course, less than a week away. It is April, but it's still Green Bay, Wisconsin. And, of course, what will be the showing from the fans and the atmosphere there around the draft. Last year set records in Detroit. Nearly 750,000 people showed up. Around 700 to 750,000 people showed up to support the draft and the stars of tomorrow in the NFL in the Motor City. I guess we'll see very shortly what we get in Green Bay.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I've been there a few times, and there's not a whole lot of room. You have the parking lots. That's what I figured it would be. But listen, they'll get them to fit. You know, even if you're just kind of walking around the city there and just having a good old grand time. No doubt that when I went there a couple of times, there's houses and everything leading up. I imagine those people are going to make a fortune if they want to sell parking spaces. I'm telling you, probably get $100 a pop and put like 5, 6, 7 cars on your front lawn, and you can make yourself a nice little chunk of change there.
Yeah, it is going to be certainly that. It's one of the beautiful things about Lambeau, about Green Bay, Wisconsin, still having an NFL franchise. We see the guys ride their bikes into practice. It has that homey neighborhood vibe to it. So we'll see that in the NFL draft. By the way, Scott, a quick check of the 10-day forecast for Green Bay. Wednesday, day before draft eve, if you will, 70 degrees and sunny in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Day of the draft, at least the opening round of it, on Thursday night, around 60 degrees. Still not bad weather for Green Bay, Wisconsin this time of year. We'll see in a warm-up here on the East Coast this weekend, starting to finally feel like spring and some warm weather on the horizon.
Yeah, and it's the great time of the year for all the mock drafts. I get a proverbial kick out of these, Ben, and I've said this before. Nobody is telling these so-called insiders who they're drafting. They're just not. I mean, I don't care what kind of insights you have. If you believe the Giants yesterday or 2 days ago, they don't even know who they're drafting, and they're sitting at the number 3 spot. So but I do enjoy reading that stuff. It's like a crazy little attraction, right? All right, tell me who you think my particular team is going to draft. I saw one on NFL.com this morning where they had the Patriots drafting Gente, the kid out of Boise State, at number 4, which would be just like crazy, right? I mean, that would be nuts if that were to happen. But if it draws clicks to your website and you have people talking about it, have some fun with it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Scott, if you were to follow the draft odds, your mock top 5 might already be done. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. Let's start with Aaron Rodgers, of course, who still somehow, some way is a central figure this NFL offseason. On the Pat McAfee show yesterday, about a 45-minute long interview talking with his buddy Pat and just kind of discussing, without saying a whole lot, his NFL future, what this offseason has held, and of course, the end of an era after 2 years in New York. Aaron Rodgers not all that pleased, Scott, with having to fly out on his own dime, as he said, to New Jersey to meet with the New York Jets, or actually probably Florham Park, in their facility and that new regime. He was not overly fond of meeting with the new regime, as he was trying to tell them he was still interested in being the quarterback of Gang Green, only for Aaron Glenn and new GM Darren Muji to say, you're not a part of our plan. Aaron Rodgers not pleased having to fly cross country to be told just that he wasn't going to be a Jet any longer. Frankly, a lot of Aaron Rodgers talking to hear his own head spin and to enlarge his own ego. Scott, we did not learn anything yesterday about conversations he has had around the NFL in terms of going to the Pittsburgh Steelers or making a declaration of where he would play next. But a lot that Aaron Rodgers had to say without saying all that much of worth.
Yeah, I got a kick out of the fact he had to throw in there on his dime, right? I get it. Who wants to fly? I guess he was in Los Angeles or California. So who wants to fly all the way across the country no matter who's paying for it, right? I get that. But to throw in there on my dime, meaning you paid for it, the guy's made $20, $30, $40, $50 million a year for the past 10, 15 years. I think he can afford, a $250 round trip Southwest Airlines flight if need be. So I did get a kick out of that. But it's the Jets being the Jets, right? I mean, I will say this about him, Ben. He would be a good salesperson because I watched a good portion of the interview, and he is a believable soul. Like, he doesn't come across like he's lying. When he's denying, like, I'm holding the Vikings hostage, or I don't want to go to Pittsburgh, or I'm telling these teams one thing and I'm doing something else. Like, he does come across as believable. I wish they would have delved into a little bit more what his personal family or whatever issues are that he's paying all this attention to right now. That would have been the most obvious question that never got asked. But he does come across to me as a believable guy. Like, listen, I'm just taking my time and I got different things on my plate right now. So.
Yeah, and Scott, he did say that, right? He talked a lot about what he is doing. He said, I'm in a different phase of life. I'm 41 years old now. I'm in a serious relationship. I have off-the-field stuff going on that requires my attention. I have personal commitments I made not knowing what my future was going to look like after last year that are important to me. He has also said he's not holding up anybody, and if he feels as though a team needs to move on move on and do so. I just thought it was a lot of Aaron Rodgers talking, and we're doing it here where we're highlighting what he said yesterday for a guy that probably isn't worth it anymore. 41 years old, 20 years in the National Football League, and with really, Scott, only two teams that have failed to make a move this offseason, the Saints and the Steelers, in terms of addressing that quarterback spot, and maybe not in the most favorable position to do so in next week's draft. There's not a lot out there still for Aaron Rodgers. He said he was contemplating retirement still, and that might be what he ends up doing. Ultimately, I'm not so sure we see Aaron Rodgers again in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, unless he's waiting for someone, sadly, to get hurt, in spring training or summer camps, and then he can step in and be the man. But if that's his mindset, Ben, for me as a team, then that means you really don't want to play. That means you really don't want to do the work. Are you going to be there on Friday nights, Saturday nights, Thursday nights, whatever, really doing all the homework you need to do to be successful on a Sunday afternoon? That tells me he really doesn't want to play. But if the right situation came up, sure. But I wouldn't want a guy in those shoes.
And Scott, you kind of got that sentiment that he's dealing with a lot and he's focused on other things, which is fine. But at 41, maybe he's not the guy you need under center. We'll talk about those potential landing spots for Rodgers, but really what the plan is in the NFL draft. We'll discuss that in the week leading up to the draft next here on FFC.
4 out of 5 scientists agree it's smarter to be on SportsGrid. And we're pretty sure that one scientist is still a virgin. He just gives that 5. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
With the SportsGrid News Flash, I'm Trey Westerberg. The Texas House gave initial approval early Thursday to a bill that would create a $1 billion private school voucher program. The vote came more than 10 hours after the chamber gave preliminary approval to its sweeping $7.7 billion school funding package. The NCAA Playing Rules Oversight Panel gave final approval to a rule designed to discourage football players from faking injuries to stop the game clock. Beginning this season, if medical personnel go onto the field to evaluate a player with an apparent injury after the ball is spotted for the next play, that player's team will be charged a timeout. If they don't have one, there will be a 5-yard delay of game penalty. A federal judge permanently struck down an Ohio law that would have required children and teens under 16 to get parental consent to use social media apps. A lawsuit filed by NetChoice had argued that the law unconstitutionally impedes free speech and is overly broad and vague. I'm Trey Westerberg with the SportsGrid News Flash.
Working as a dedicated Fidelity advisor, I always ask, what's important to you? I'll look at those priorities and goals alongside your full financial picture to build a comprehensive plan designed to help grow and protect your wealth. With proactive portfolio insights and an eye on taxes, I'm here to help you make the most of your money. I'm Laura Maxwell, and I'm a dedicated Fidelity advisor. Learn more at fidelity.com/wealth. Investment minimums apply. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC, member NYSE, SIPC.
Progressive knows when you're in your RV, you're already on vacation. That's when you become Vacation You, who just camped where there's absolutely no shade. Even though regular you burns easily. In fact, Vacation You burns too, but is too stubborn to admit it, which is why regular you gets in trouble at the dermatologist, because Vacation You doesn't do doctors. So bundle your RV with your home or auto policy and earn an automatic discount from Progressive. And spend the savings on the both of you. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and other insurers. Not available in all states or situations.
There's something you should know and always remember. SportsGrid does not increase luck. We're your unfair advantage for the latest sports gaming information. If you're looking for luck, go find a horseshoe. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Scott Wetzel and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on Football Full Circle. Scott, when we heard that Aaron Rodgers would be on the Pat McAfee show yesterday afternoon, exactly 1 week out from the 2025 NFL Draft, many thought that like March of 2023, Aaron Rodgers might be using that time, that platform, to share his intentions and where he wanted to at least play in that upcoming NFL season. 2 years ago, it was saying, I want to be the quarterback of the New York Jets. Yesterday, not all that much. But of course, some thought maybe he would say, I'm close to signing a deal with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Did not happen. Talked about his visit to Pittsburgh back in late March, nearly a month ago. But Scott, it's a really interesting time, of course, for the Pittsburgh Steelers. 6 days out now from the 2025 NFL Draft. and that opening round. Of course, there has been a lot of conversation around the Steelers using this time, using this draft to try to get their quarterback of the future. This millennium, Pittsburgh has drafted 2 QBs in the opening round. Ben Roethlisberger back at 11th overall in 2004. Worked out pretty well. Kenny Pickett, 20th overall back in 2022. As Pickett is now a member of the Cleveland Browns, hasn't worked nearly as well. Scott, what do you think Pittsburgh does in the NFL draft?
I think they move up, and I think they draft Sanders. The mock draft I was referencing last segment made an interesting point at number 6 with the Raiders, and that's Tom Brady. And we all know Brady's relationship with Shedeur Sanders pretty good, and with Deion Sanders, it's really kind of blossomed over the last 2 years of him being in Colorado. So I know they got Geno Smith. They pointed out, though, that his contract's not guaranteed after this upcoming season, so you're not really locked into him 4, 5, 6 years. Would he really get past the Raiders? Forget about the Browns and the Giants. That's another interesting little scenario. So I think Pittsburgh's going to be aggressive, Ben. I think they're going to move up. I think as soon as the Giants, maybe they won't get past the Giants, but as soon as the Giants draft somebody else, Travis Hunter, whoever, I think Pittsburgh's going to be on the phone with New England and try and make a move. Patriots need a bunch of players. They're not one player away, obviously, right? So if they're willing to give a couple of draft choices, why not? So I do think Pittsburgh's going to get into that Shedeur Sanders mix. At least try anyway.
Yeah, right now the odds for the first player drafted, first position drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers, currently owning that 21st overall pick. D lineman, edge rusher is the favorite at plus 240, but quarterback not all that far behind at plus 270, Scott. Those are the odds according to the FanDuel Sportsbook. When this market opened, quarterback was plus 340, down by nearly $1. And we have talked about the other odds associated with the Steelers and maybe going after a QB in the opening round. Team to draft Shedeur Sanders. The Pittsburgh Steelers, that second best price at a 4-1 number. The Saints still have the shortest number. The most likely option, it would appear, via the odds makers for where Shedeur Sanders ends up. But it's now plus 145 earlier in the week, plus 105, plus 125. You would think, Scott, that if we do finally see some movement in the draft order, which we have not to this point, now still 6 days away from the 2025 NFL draft, it would more than likely be for a quarterback, more than likely being that quarterback in Shedeur Sanders, and probably happens around that 4 to 5 pick range, as you alluded to. Both the Patriots and the Jaguars, who draft 4th and 5th respectively, trying to fill out a bunch of positional needs along their roster.
Yeah, and while you don't have, Ben, a lot of teams that theoretically need a quarterback like last year, but there's just not that many quarterbacks. So whether it's Pittsburgh, whether it's New Orleans now, that certainly could be in the mix, or pick a couple of other teams. When you only have 2 holes, and that's Ward and Sanders, theoretically, and you got 5 or 6 teams, I'd be shocked if you didn't get at least 3, and I really think 4 quarterbacks, to tell you the truth, taken in the first round. But Sanders is obviously, the hot topic right now. And I think teams will move up. If the Saints think he's going to drop to 9 or Pittsburgh to 21, I would be just beyond shocked if that were to occur. They're going to have to move up. They're going to have to pay the price. And if the guy turns out to be as good as, hoped, then it's well worth an extra first-round draft choice or whatever it ends up costing you.
Yeah, the odds profile for Shedeur Sanders that could show us where he ends up in the 2025 NFL draft. Again, the Saints are the team most likely to draft him right now. Plus 145 is that number. The Saints currently have the 9th overall pick. Shedeur is a plus 320 price, so not necessarily favored to be a top 5 pick, but minus 290 to go in the top 10. Could there be a trade even after the top 5, but in front of New Orleans? The Raiders draft 6th, the Jets draft 7th, the Panthers draft 8th. I think, again, if we are going to see a trade at some point in this opening round, Scott, it probably happens to make a move up for Shedeur Sanders. At least that would be the thought. Ultimately, though, to your point, Scott, and what I think is very fascinating, if it's not the Saints at number 9 overall and the Steelers trade up to get Shedeur Sanders, or even if it is the Saints and they remain at 9, do you think Pittsburgh sits there and waits for a quarterback? The reason I bring it up, because really outside of the top 3, and we're really only convinced that one quarterback goes in the top 3, despite the fact that the Titans, Browns, and Giants still probably all need that future quarterback. Really, outside of the top three, there's not many other teams in the market for a quarterback after that. The Saints at 9, the Steelers at 21, which is why I think the idea that we're now going to see 3 quarterbacks go in the opening round is fascinating, because there's not a lot of teams that are in desperate need of a quarterback, unlike last year.
Yeah, it would probably have to take like a Raiders team that on the surface doesn't need a quarterback to go ahead and take Sanders if he fell past the Giants. A little bit of a surprise team. Indianapolis Colts, another club. We know they're not enamored anymore with Anthony Richardson, right? They wouldn't have brought in, Danny Nichols, as I like to call him, if he fell to the Colts' lap, or if the Colts are really high on Chuck or Dart. Would they take him? Yeah, maybe. So there's a couple of teams that it would be a little bit of a surprise, but you're not going to wait until the second round if you're those teams. So I said, I do think there's going to be at least 3. I don't know about 4. I'm guessing the Vegas number is like 2.5. But if that's the case, I would go over on that.
Yeah, I think if it is 2.5, the over has hefty juice. If it's 3.5, Scott, the under probably has all of that vig, because right now Jackson Dart minus 700, his price to be a first round selection. That's surefire at 3. We'll talk about the potential 4th in Jalen Milroe up next here on FFC.
There's smart and there's not smart. Not smart is hope as a strategy. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Keep it here and win. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. The SportsGrid Radio Network presents This Date in Sports History.
1999, Wayne Gretzky plays his last game in the NHL as the New York Rangers lose 2-1 to the Penguins.
I said the other night, I wanted this to be a celebration because I feel so lucky that I was able to play in the National Hockey League.
The Great One scored 894 goals in his career, an NHL best. For SportsGrid Radio, I'm Mike DeMurgis.
The Technology Minute with George Capalbo.
Polymer scientists at the American Chemical Society have invented a molecular hydrophilic coating for golf balls so that when you putt, slows the speed of the ball on lightning-fast bone-dry greens and speeds it up on wet, slow greens, making your game more predictable. Totally legal, complies with all USDA rules. Won't cure your slice because there's no aerodynamic effect. And no matter how technologically advanced your hydrophilic golf ball is, it will not solve this problem. Follow me at G Capalbo on X and stay tuned to the Technology Minute for more cool stuff like this.
Money line. Look, we need to get to the important stuff right now, right? So this is where I sort of hijack this, because in college, the swag is so important here. And I see the pictures of you. You got the face paint. You got the right helmet. You got the right face mask. You have the wristbands only on the right arm, which I can appreciate. Give me some of that swag in the locker room before you come out of the game and say, you know what? Look good, play good, baby.
Catch Moneyline with Donnie Rightside and Kevin Walsh. Weekdays, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 Pacific. On the SportsGrid Radio Network. Wherever you go, there you are. Download the SportsGrid mobile app and we'll be right there with you.
So now you can get the winning edge anywhere.
Even while the wife's talking to you.
If you got an earbud.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Scott Wetzel and Ben Stevens.
So, Scott, we were going to discuss that 4th potential quarterback going in the opening round, Alabama QB Jalen Milroe, next week in the 2025 NFL Draft. And right as we went to break, the NFL, who earlier this week released a list of its 17 attendees attending the actual NFL Draft in the green room in Green Bay, included on that list was Jackson Dart, the quarterback out of Ole Miss, which was interesting not only because he was a minus 700 favorite to be a round 1 pick, but if you're going to show up in the green room, you don't really want to be sitting around all night long in that first round with the cameras and the nation's eyeballs on you. just to have a disappointed look on your face as you continue to wait to hear your name called, i.e. Will Levis a couple of years ago in 2023. Interesting note, Jackson Dart no longer on the updated list of the attendees to the Green Room in Green Bay this upcoming Thursday. But a guy that remains, Jalen Milroe. Plus 140 price, Scott, for Milroe to be a first-round pick. Now, I would still be absolutely shocked if Jalen Milroe went in the first round. But you don't necessarily show up to the NFL draft to sit in that green room around your friends and family and loved ones just to wait until night number 2. So, Scott, it does not seem as though it's not a possibility, I guess I should say in the double negative, Jalen Milroe ends up a first-round pick.
Yeah, let's take Dart for a second. All right, it can't be because he's sick or not feeling well, right? Because the draft is a week away. So throw any of that stuff out of the equation. So you wonder why he changed his mind. Did someone tell him that they changed their mind on him and he thought he was going to, we'll just say Pittsburgh? And now, someone says, you know what, we're not going to draft you. So there's not that many teams, as we talked about, that need quarterbacks. That's kind of bizarre, right? Because I will say this also, if you're going to stay at home, it's not like cameras aren't in your home. They're going to have, NFL's going to ask you, hey, can we put a camera in your house so we can see you get drafted and celebrate? So the cameras are still going to be there. Whether you're sitting in the green room or you're sitting at home, the nation's going to see you sitting. So that's kind of bizarre. You'd hate to think that guys are holding out for maybe money, Ben. Hey, if you want me to show up, I'm guessing they get a paid ride, them and their family, and the whole kit caboodle. But that is a little bizarre. As far as Milroe, maybe he's gotten word from Pittsburgh that the Steelers supposedly they really like him, are saying, you know what, you're not going to get past us, so we're going to take you at 21. So he feels assured of going to this thing. Unless he's just a media whore and he just wants the attention. He wants the cameras on him as he's sitting there, and that no publicity is bad publicity, right? Or any publicity is good publicity. So maybe that's it. Or he just wants, you know what? I'm experiencing the NFL. If I don't get drafted in the first round, at least I could tell my kids I was there. I was at Lambeau Field, blah, 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 blah. And, I got drafted in the second round. No big deal. But I want to associate myself with all the other first-round high prospects and think I'm part of that class, even though I might not be.
Yeah, and Scott, there could be something to that, right? Maybe he is hearing he is borderline first, but surefire early second round, that on Friday night, he's like, all right, I'll go back for another night to the green room to walk across the stage and shake the commissioner's hand. Just because I'm not a first-round pick doesn't mean I can't celebrate on a Friday in Green Bay. We shall see. But again, the NFL has been very conscious to not have those type of scenarios that we saw a few years ago with the cameras fully on Will Levis for about 4 hours during the draft. So they're not trying to invite somebody who's not going to hear their name called until the 4th or 5th round. And of course, the player and his representation also not trying to put themselves in an embarrassing or poor-looking spot by any means. Jalen Milroe, still one of the 2 quarterbacks that we plan on having attend the 2025 NFL draft. The other guy is what seems to be the surefire number 1 overall pick right now, Scott, in Cam Ward. A minus 20,000 price remains for Ward to go first overall to the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, it is amazing. This is like the NFL doesn't have too many flaws, Ben, but only 17, depending on what the number ends up being, between 15 and 20 players only showing up for this thing. I mean, this is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, yet one of the main attractions, the players are saying, nah. I think it's really more of, I just want to be at home with my friends and family. I could have 15, 20, 30 people at my house celebrating and doing this and that versus being at the NFL, situation and maybe having 5 to 10 if you're lucky.
Yeah. And Scott, you still get all those cameras in the house of a Jackson Dart or in the house of insert X prospect. They don't have an issue kind of making that from the content perspective a storyline of the night as well. Let's talk about the top 5 because the odds are very, very strong. We'll do that next here on Football Full Circle live on SportsGrid Radio.
The winning edge.
You've got it.
But not everybody has it because not everybody listens to us.
But we're working on that.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Progressive presents the SportsGrid Sports Flash. The NHL, they wrapped up their regular season last night with a handful of games, and now they get ready for the postseason. The postseason schedule over the next few days, first two games being played on Saturday. The Blues will travel to Winnipeg to take on the Jets, and the Avalanche will travel to Dallas to take on the Stars. And then three games coming up on Sunday. The Hurricanes are going to play host to the Devils. Senators and Maple Leafs will match up in Toronto, and the Wild and Golden Knights, they are set to match up in Las Vegas. Tonight, the NBA play-in tournament is going to wrap up. Heat at the Hawks, Mavericks at the Grizzlies. The winner of those games will go into the NBA playoff bracket as the 8th seed. The loser of those games will have their season come to an end. Bundle auto and home, renters, or condo insurance and save with Progressive. I'm Matt Pauley with the SportsGrid Sports Flash.
Spring is here, and Kohl's has everything you need to celebrate it in style. Find fresh looks the whole family will love for all your events and get-togethers this season. Plus, save an extra 15% on some of your favorites and earn Kohl's cash. There's so much to love about spring, and big savings on great styles is one of them. Find them now at Kohl's and Kohl's.com. Select styles. Offer ends April 19th. Kohl's cash and coupons do not apply to Sephora at Kohl's. Exclusions apply. See store or Kohl's.com for details.
At Straight Talk, we are all about no-brainers. Calling Grandma for her recipe? No-brainer. Streaming one more episode at 2 a.m.? Big no-brainer. Getting real unlimited data where you buy bananas? The ultimate no-brainer. Switch now and get a free Samsung Galaxy A16 5G or Moto G Power 5G 2024 with select plans. Straight Talk. Real unlimited data. Available at Walmart and StraightTalk.com. Offer valid through 5/19/25. Taxes and fees apply. Requires in-store single line activation on qualifying plan. For network management practices, visit StraightTalk.com/terms. Copyright 2025 Verizon.
You're listening to Sports Grid.
Spreading the winning edge far and wide.
Terrestrial, internet, TV, satellite, and don't forget our mobile app.
Face it.
The winning edge is everywhere.
Somewhere there's a squirrel frustrated he can't get a phone.
This is the Sports Grid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Scott Wetzel and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on Football Full Circle, it is FFC. Scott, if you were to look at the odds board right now for the early portion of the draft board for next Thursday and night number one, you would basically think that your mock draft, or at least your mock odds board, is certainly locked up. To go number one overall, Cam Ward, minus 20,000. To go second overall, the odds increasing. Travis Hunter now minus 700. Same story at third overall for Abdul Carter, minus 500. And fourth overall, Will Campbell, minus 240. Minus money price at fifth overall, minus 145 for Mason Graham. But Scott, especially in the top three, which has been a focus of the draft conversations throughout this cycle, basically everybody at a 5-to-1 price or greater in minus money. If those are the odds, that's what we can expect. Are we going to see any surprises in the next 6 days? As the odds makers would tell you, that's all that we really have to worry about.
Yeah, I think we will. I still have to believe Sanders getting past the Browns and Giants. I have to see it to believe it. I just, unless there's stuff behind the scenes that the so-called experts aren't talking about. I mean, I don't know why two teams that desperately need quarterbacks would pass on a guy that's considered the second best quarterback in the draft. I just don't get that. As we've mentioned many times, it's not easy. I know it sounds crazy, but it's not easy getting the second or third overall pick. I mean, you got to really, really, really be bad. There's a lot of games on these last place schedules that you're facing awful football teams. You have to lose all of those to be in this position, Ben. So I got to see that to believe it. I still think the Browns are going to take him, but there'd be no reason for them not to say they're going to take him since they know Cam Ward's going number one. It would be the Giants that would want to kind of fool around a little bit and not tell the world, because then maybe someone would go in front of them and trade with the Browns. So I got to see it to believe it. So I think we're going to get some craziness in the first round. Like I said, these guys who are making these mock drafts, they don't know. I refuse to believe that a GM, I was watching the Shane press conference on Wednesday with the Giants. He's telling the world a week before the draft he doesn't know who they're drafted yet. I'm like, come on. How's that possible? You got the number 3 overall pick, right? You know who's going number 1. So there's only one variable in front of you, and that's Cleveland. Cleveland takes the guy you want. You got to have the second guy on the list. Cleveland doesn't take the guy you want, then you get your guy. How can't you know a week before the draft, sitting at number 3, who you're going to take? So whatever leaks out, and that influences these odds. Clearly, there is no more public influence, right, Ben, than the NFL draft when it comes to odds. So I'd put a couple shekels on some upset players. I would.
Yeah, and Scott, you're not wrong in thinking so, right? Normally, odds makers base things off their algorithms, their power ratings. You can put out an expected outcome, and that's what we're doing here. But that's based on a large sample size and projections of insert X matchup, or this guy is the MVP favorite. A lot of that is still narrative based, but when it comes to actual games or divisions or conference championship prices, it's a lot more metrically tied than the NFL draft. It is why you can see wild changes in markets based on one report, and those reports could still be outstanding, not just next week, Scott, but day of the draft, 30 minutes prior to the draft, you get some sort of official insider confirmation. And that line could be minus 500 right now in favor of Abdul Carter and be minus 5,000 in favor of Travis Hunter by the time we actually get to Thursday night and the pick is in. I will say, the guy now with the second best price, Scott, to go third overall is Shedeur Sanders at a 5-1 number. To me, it still would make more sense for the Cleveland Browns to draft Shedeur Sanders than the New York Giants, given the fact that Giants have invested in both Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston already this offseason. The Browns traded for Kenny Pickett and signed the veteran in Joe Flacco. Not nearly as much financial investment, Scott, as the Giants have put into Russell Wilson or Jameis Winston, but there has been zero indication Cleveland is interested at all in a quarterback in the draft at number 2 overall.
Yeah, which really just makes no sense, right? Like we said, they don't have to hide their feelings. They know Ward's going number 1, right? So there's no reason for them not to tell the world, yep, Sanders is our guy. You know what? And if they take Sanders, we'll be happy with Ward. No problem. We're getting one of the two. So here you go. That's what it is. It's only really the Giants, and after that, where you got to kind of protect your interests. So I don't get it either, Ben. I mean, not only do they need a quarterback, it's also the extra burden of just getting rid of that stench of Deshaun Watson. And I don't mean him personally, but just that whole situation. Just move on. You have an opportunity to move on from that. You know, you put Flacco in there or you put Pickett in there, you know, chances are you might win 5 or 6 games. You're not going to be great, but you might win 5 or 6, and all of a sudden you'll be sitting in like the number 7, 8, or 9 hole, and you won't have this opportunity next year. I don't understand, but that's why the Browns are the Browns, right? I read a report saying they're really, really high on Kenny Pickett, and I said to myself, well, that's why the Browns are the Browns. Right? I mean, maybe something will happen to turn Kenny Pickett into a great quarterback, but what we've seen, you know, he tried, he failed. Nice little backup, but to think that he's going to lead you to the promised land, that's the Cleveland Browns, I guess.
Reliable backup, maybe a guy that could be a starter, to be the face of the franchise when you have the second overall pick. It's a very, very different story. But again, right now, minus 700 for Travis Hunter to go second overall. Scott, we talked about this yesterday on the show, and you and I discussed on Wednesday afternoon Travis Hunter's comments of wanting to play on both sides of the football. We heard from Andrew Berry, the GM in Cleveland, for his pre-draft news conference yesterday. He talked about the Ohtani-like value of Travis Hunter, a guy that is a fantastic player if he only does one. If you allow him to play on both sides of the ball, he kind of becomes this unicorn, a diamond in the rough that you cannot often find. What I found fascinating, though, is previous comments from Andrew Berry that they see Travis Hunter more as a top-line wide receiver than a shutdown, lockdown cornerback on the other side, where I think, personally, watching a lot of Travis Hunter collegiately, great wide receiver, elite difference maker as a cornerback. And by the way, college football writers agree, first-team All-American as a corner, second-team All-American, still very good, mind you, as a wide receiver. I found the idea that Cleveland is drafting him second overall as a wideout primarily rather intriguing.
Yeah, and even Shane on Wednesday, I was a little surprised when Ben said it would be harder for him to be a wide receiver than a defensive back. Whereas I would have thought it would have been the other way around. As a defensive back, you're doing 5 zillion different defenses and zones, and you got to know where to be. Whereas wide receiver, it's go over 10 yards, turn around and butt hook. I'll throw you the football, right? I mean, but he said it was the other way around, so that's interesting. How long is that going to last, Ben? I've had this discussion with others. This guy's not going to play both ways. There's no agent in the world that's going to allow him to get paid chump change like these NFL players do their first 4-5 years as a first-round draft choice and play both offense and defense. There's no way. He can't do it physically. And even he may have that intention. Even he'll come to the realization of, well, wait a minute, I'm making $2 million a year, and I'm playing 35 downs on offense and 35 on defense. Forget this. So if you're drafting him thinking he's going to be Ohtani for the next 5 to 10 years, it's not happening. It's just not. I don't care what you think. I got to absolutely see that to believe that.
Yeah, no doubt about it, Scott. Andrew Berry said they might let him moonlight as a defensive back. Again, that's crazy to me. I think Travis Hunter goes in the top 3, goes second overall, because he is an absolute difference maker that takes away a portion of the field as a quarterback. He is a really good wide receiver, but it almost seems as though Cleveland needs to focus more on defense, or at least that has been their prerogative this offseason in the $40 million shelled out to Myles Garrett than they have on the offensive side of the football. Very interesting stuff, Scott, with what the Cleveland Browns are thinking of doing atop the NFL draft. We'll talk some other players, some other prospects. 6 days away from the opening round in Green Bay of the 2025 NFL Draft. Up next, live right here on Football Full Circle.
We're not saying every SportsGrid listener is a legend, but you might start thinking about who's going to play you in the movie.
Just saying.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
With the SportsGrid News Flash, I'm Trey Westerberg. A federal judge permanently struck down an Ohio law that would have required children and teens under 16 to get parental consent to use social media apps. A lawsuit filed by NetChoice had argued that the law unconstitutionally impedes free speech and is overly broad and vague. The Texas House gave initial approval early Thursday to a bill that would create a $1 billion private school voucher program. The vote came more than 10 hours after the chamber gave preliminary approval to its sweeping $7.7 billion school funding package. The NCAA Playing Rules Oversight Panel gave final approval to a rule designed to discourage football players from faking injuries to stop the game clock. Beginning this season, if medical personnel go onto the field to evaluate a player with an apparent injury after the ball is spotted for the next play, that player's team will be charged a timeout. If they don't have one, there will be a 5-yard delay of game penalty. I'm Trey Westerberg with the SportsGrid News Flash.
Welcome to Staples.
Hi, I hear Staples prints it all.
Oh, you bet. Posters, banners.
Can you print it all for Mother's Day?
Oh, of course. Photo gifts like canvas prints, photo puzzles.
Can you print it all for graduation?
Sure can. Custom cards and invites.
Can you print a huge banner with the grad's picture?
Oh, definitely.
Even an embarrassing baby picture?
Oh, those are the best kind.
I know, right?
Print it all for moms and grads at Staples. And right now, get 40% off custom cards, invites, and photo gifts. N75 exclusions apply. Visit staples.com/print for details.
At Skechers, we put the S in comfort.
Wait. Skechers put the S in comfort?
Yes, comfort you have to feel to believe. Skechers, we put the S in comfort.
Let me try. Okay, I'm just stepping in and... Oh, wow. Skechers put the S in comfort.
Duh, we told you.
Find Skechers slip-ins at a Skechers store, Skechers.com, or wherever stylish footwear is sold.
Ask any player and they'll tell you any advantage is important.
That's where we come in.
SportsGrid delivers gaming strategies and analysis 7 days a week.
The winning edge.
It's your advantage to more winning
more often.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Scott Wetzel and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on Football Full Circle, it is FFC. Scott, I think in the coming days, probably starting Monday or Tuesday next week, we should get the full odds markets out for the 2025 NFL Draft. Again, it can be a difficult thing to handicap or even win some wagers on. If you listen to us here on a daily basis, we hope that we can provide that insight. It is also just a nice tool to have, a utility, if you will, to allow you even a deeper look at what the NFL Draft could look like. And we have the top prices out right now for the first 5 picks. I think we will also get the odds out for 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th overall, as has been the case the last few years. To be a top 10 pick, Ashton Genty, Scott, reigning Heisman runner-up, is a minus 1,500 price. You said you saw a mock draft earlier today that had Genty going 4th overall to the New England Patriots, plus 300 for Genty to be a top 5 pick, 12-1 to be that specific 4th overall selection made by New England. I do find it fascinating. We have spent so much time talking about 1, 2, and 3 in the quarterback conversation. Well, the two teams drafting at 4th and 5th overall have their quarterback of the future right here, right now. Drake May in New England, Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville. But two first-time head coaches in these respective spots trying to fill out rosters that feel a little bit depleted or short of standard. In New England, for the Patriots drafting 4th. In Jacksonville, for the Jags drafting 5th.
Yeah, top 10, Ben? I mean, I don't see it. He does kind of remind me of Maurice Jones-Drew, right? Small. He's listed at 5'8" and change, Ben. And that's what he's listed as. I don't know what he actually was at the combines. I'm sure they measured him, but he's small. I've been saying that all year. Stocky, absolutely. Fast, yes, but I would be surprised. First of all, running backs don't generally go, high in the first round, maybe first round, but not that high. For him to go 4 or even top 10 like that bet suggests he's almost a lock to do, I don't know. He 5'8.5", 220 pounds in the NFL. This guy's going to get killed. I wouldn't draft him, and I loved him. Great, best running back. Maybe the kid, out of Arizona State might be a little bit better, but terrific running back. But I'm going to use a top 10 pick on that. Nah, not me.
Yeah, Scott, it's interesting because he was so sensational in a historic year this past season in college football. 1,970 yards after contact, the most in a single season in FBS history. Ashton Genty wrote a letter through the Players Tribune to NFL organizations and front offices with an incredible closing line. This is called tackle football, is what Genty said. So draft a guy they can't tackle. And based on what he did during his college days at Boise State, it's really hard to argue. It's just an interesting thing from the NFL draft and in value perspective, kind of the reinvigoration of the running back. Saquon Barkley, an MVP contender this past year. 9th player ever in the history of the NFL to have more than 2,000 yards in a single season. We have seen running backs start to get paid. 2 years ago, we saw 2 running backs go in the top 12. Bijan Robinson, 8th overall. Jahmyr Gibbs, 12th overall. Both have been off to great starts so far in their first 2 years in the National Football League. So, Scott, it is really interesting to think that Ashton Genty could be a top 10 guy. The team that is favored to draft him right now with a minus 105 price, the Las Vegas Raiders, who, of course, own that 6th overall pick.
Yeah. It's one thing, Ben, though, to run through San Jose State and Fresno State and UNLV tacklers. Try doing that in the NFL, right? And if you watch those games that I did, they gave them the football 30, 35 times a game. I mean, they just said, 3rd and 10, we're running the ball. 3rd and 15, we're running the ball. So I don't know. I'm just not that high on him as far as being an NFL player. Not top 10. Certainly not 4. That's for sure. If there was a no bet to that, I would absolutely take a flyer. If it's minus 17-1, I think you said it was, for him to be a top 10 pick, probably no. If they offer a no, is what, 13-1, 12-1? Considering the VIG, I would put a couple shekels on the no. I don't think he's going to go that high.
At least on the FanDuel Sportsbook, no negative price to that. I know there are some draft position props on other books like DraftKings where that number is probably not 10.5 with so much juice on the under. It's probably a little bit more factored in to where people think he goes. 6.5, 6, whatever that might be, where the Las Vegas Raiders are drafting. Scott, it is not a frequent thing, at least the last 5, 6, 7 years in the NFL draft, to see a running back go in the top 10, right? 2 in the top 12 2 years ago. Bijan Robinson inside the top 10, 8th overall to the Falcons. Prior to that, the last time we saw a top 10 pick at the running back spot in the NFL draft was Saquon Barkley back in 2018, second overall, of course, to the New York Giants. We saw a couple of top 10 guys the year prior. Leonard Fournette, fourth overall. Christian McCaffrey, eighth overall, I believe, in 2017. But, Scott, it wasn't like an immediate change following 2023. All right, 2 running backs in the top 12. Standard has been set once again to invest in rookie running backs who can do a little bit of everything. Because last year, no first-round running backs at all. Nobody even late in the opening round. First was 46th overall, Jonathan Brooks, to the Carolina Panthers midway through the second round out of Texas. There is an idea, though, Scott. It's not just Ashton Genty in the top 10 that we see multiple running backs go in the first round. Omarion Hampton, talented running back out of North Carolina, minus 1,500 to be a first-round pick. That's a surefire lock at this point with a minus 1,500 price.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's good to see. Maybe running backs, thank you, Saquon. Maybe a little more importance is being put on, big-time running backs. I still think, the proverbial thinking is it's not that these guys aren't good. It's just that the second round, third round, and fourth round running backs can turn out to be just as good if you have a good offensive line. That's the key to it all. So, I like I said, I'm guessing 2.5 is the Vegas line on running backs first round, maybe 3. Probably. Yeah, probably 3, right? Yeah, with the kid from Arizona State.
Yeah,
you might get it this year. You might actually get it this year over.
It is a very deep running back class, but to Scott's point, that often can mean a lot of day 2 and day 3 picks that, of course, are still under contract for 4 years and present some value, at least from the financial perspective, on that rookie deal. Plenty more to come on Football Full Circle up next here on FFC.
Luck is winning the lottery. Strategy is settling your divorce before cashing in the ticket.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Get the winning edge. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. SportsGrid TV and radio networks are the premier streaming video and audio channels dedicated to serving the sports wagering audience. Found on major smart TV platforms and streaming on SportsGrid Radio and Sirius XM Channel 159. SportsGrid's real-time data, expert commentary, and entertaining analysis transform viewers into informed sports enthusiasts. Our weekday radio lineup begins with the early line at 8 a.m. Eastern with Ben Stevens and Donnie Rightside. Donnie joins Kevin Walsh on Money Line at 11 a.m. Eastern, followed by Football Full Circle at noon Eastern. Kaplan and crew join the party at 1 p.m. Eastern, and Pharrell Coast to Coast keeps things rolling from 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern. Get in the mix with Kevin Walsh and Game Time Decisions at 6 p.m. Eastern. Evenings simmer with Carver and Lisi, then boils over with Gabe Moritzi on Sports Rage Late Night at 10 p.m. Eastern. To find out where to find SportsGrid that's best for you, go to sportsgrid.com. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Imagine combining the exciting investment opportunity of cryptocurrencies with the power of artificial intelligence to maximize your IRA, 401k, or other investment funds. Listen, if you're looking for ways to accelerate your retirement growth, Block Trust IRA has market-leading strategies and solutions for all levels of investors, from $1,000 to millions. And they partner with Bitcoin Magazine's #1 crypto trading fund in the world to maximize your returns. Plus, their team of IRA specialists is here to help you roll over your IRA or qualified retirement account to the new world of cryptocurrency investments. So make this free call right now to set up your account and learn more.
800-434-5313. 800-434-5313. 800-434-5313. That's 800-434-5313.
Think of us as your cool roommate that has this innate gift of somehow always picking winners and never bugs you about doing the dishes or paying rent. Sports gaming strategies and information 24/7.
Get the winning edge.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Scott Wetzel and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on Football Full Circle, it is FFC. Scott, not a ton of news around the National Football League outside of getting ready for the NFL Draft or Aaron Rodgers speaking yesterday, but a couple of minuscule things, maybe not minuscule, but a couple of updates to bring you. Ryan Ramczyk, who was an 8-year NFL veteran, all 8 of his NFL seasons in New Orleans after being a first-round pick back in 2017. At the age of 30, has decided to call it a career, announcing his retirement from the National Football League yesterday. The Saints lose a really solid offensive lineman who had been a staple of their franchise for about the last decade.
Yeah, I think that's another sign that ship is sinking. Well, I know they brought in a new head coach, Kellen Moore, and all that other stuff, but it's the same quarterback in Derek Carr, and he can't play. You're looking at Spencer Rattler, unless they go get Shedeur Sanders somehow, some way. There's not a whole lot of optimism in that camp. Maybe that plays a role. Maybe it doesn't, but relatively young. You would think he'd be able to play a couple more years, but good player. I don't know if a Hall of Fame player, but I always remember, when associate the Saints and running the football and everything, that his name, he was one of the better offensive linemen for sure.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So the Saints have a lot to figure out this offseason, and a lot of that will be predicated by what they do 6 days from now. Currently holding the 9th overall pick, but if they're going to go after a quarterback, do they move up, and what does that mean for rookie head coach in Kellen Moore? All right, Scott, elsewhere around the NFL, Trey White has re-signed in Buffalo. Also a former first-round pick back in 2017. Spent the first 7 years of his NFL career in Western New York, plagued by injury the last few seasons. This past year was out with the Rams and the Ravens. Has now made his return to Buffalo. The Bills bringing back a vet they know very well for some depth in that defensive secondary.
Yeah, good player, right? These are the kind of moves that you wonder, like, why wouldn't the Rams, who seem to be a win-now team, right? Why wouldn't they do everything to try and keep him? Why would the Dolphins look to trade Jalen Ramsey if they're a win-now team? You get all these veteran players, and that's what we were talking about, earlier in the week. When the Dolphins say to the world that they're going to get rid of Jalen Ramsey, that tells me, all right, you know what? They don't really care about winning anymore. The teams that care about winning bring in guys like that, bring in White to help fortify their defense. So, interesting move, good move, right? Makes a lot of sense. It also better real quickly. I will say this with the Saints and some of these odds. Listen, it takes something crazy to bet something now that you're not being able to cash until next January, February, right? Yeah. But whoever drafts Shedeur Sanders, I'm not saying they're going to win the Super Bowl, but that would be the team whose odds are going to drop. Whether it's Cleveland, whether it's New Orleans, whether it's the Giants. So if you want to put a couple shekels on these futures long-term, do it now before the draft, because I guarantee you, again, they're going to think that maybe he's Jaden Daniels, maybe he's C.J. Stroud. Might not be, and certainly might not win the Super Bowl, but I'm telling you right now, those odds will drop. That's for sure.
Yeah, and there's other ways of doing that, right? A playoff price, a win total, a divisional bet, a conference bet. Probably not as juicy as the Super Bowl, but still a lot of good value, especially for a Saints team at this moment that has a win total of 6.5, and the steady juice is on that under at minus 140. Scott, I think it's going to be a difficult season in the Big Easy, Shedeur Sanders or not, as they kind of find some growing pains. There's some questions about the rest of the offensive talent. Obviously, Alvin Kamara is still there at the moment. We'll see what that looks like. But, Scott, when you look all around, I do think it's a really good point you bring up. We have focused so much on the NFL draft odds. This prospect to go where? What's the price? What's the team? Yada, yada, yada. They are making these moves to improve their franchise, whether that's a bump in the win total, a shorter division, conference, or Super Bowl price. That is all impacted starting 6 days from now. And it was interesting to me, Scott, because we haven't talked about it nearly as often as we do when the market opens up, or obviously throughout the course of an NFL season. The conference prices around the AFC have shifted. The Chiefs began as the favorites. They've got the third best number, not by a ton, not backed by $5+, but the Baltimore Ravens, as of right now, will enter 2025 as the AFC Championship favorites, plus 360. The Bills 10 cents behind at plus 370. And Scott, the reigning AFC champs, the Chiefs, at a 4-1 price.
Yeah, that's kind of funny to see the defending champs there, or at least AFC champs anyway, as the third choice. Still like Cincinnati at plus 950, though.
Yep, that is definitely a price to pay attention to. Got to fill out that defense. You would think it's going to be a point of emphasis for the Bengals throughout the entirety of the 2025 NFL Draft. He is Scott Wetzel. I am Ben Stevens. That does it for us this week on FFC. Everybody have a lovely weekend. We'll talk to you Monday, noon Eastern time on SportsGrid Radio.
You found the advantage for gaming, odds, and more. But we call it the winning edge for short. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.